And we are live. So thank you all for joining us on our first Finance Magnates podcast interview. And our guest on this first time is Alon from CoinDash. How are you, Alon?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm actually very excited to have our first podcast interview, and I'm glad it's with you.
Cool. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So I'll start off by saying, I've met we talked a couple of times before, and I've met Alon yesterday. We were sitting together at a panel in Tel Aviv, FinTech Junction, speaking about ICOs. So I have some some knowledge of his offering, but I'll try to keep this as novice friendly as possible. So I'll we want people that are brand new to cryptocurrencies or brand new to ICOs, to be able to understand you. Okay, so try to keep it, don't simplify it, but explain everything from the basis. Okay.
Sure.
Okay, great. So first questions is, of course, to introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself.
So I've been in the blockchain space. I'm a developer. I've been in the blockchain space for around 5 years now. I've started by just contributing code to many of the open source projects who were the prominent ones back then. So the reference client, the Bitcoin reference client, Ethereum J. I've developed my own wallet along the way. And around a year and a half ago, I've started investing my own money into crypto assets, and that's when it's kind of hit me that it might be the biggest use case or the biggest potential for the technology to change something in the real world, which is the financial sector. And so from that, I've went to develop CoinDash, which is a portfolio management and social trading platform specifically for crypto assets.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's start with the beginning, right? So for people that don't know, there's been a development in the blockchain space, right? In the cryptocurrencies, blockchain, mainly Ethereum space, which people use these assets in order to invest in crowdfunding projects, usually within the blockchain space. So if do you want to say a few words about what's an ICO, and why should people be familiar with this term?
Sure. So an ICO is a mechanism through which companies, blockchain companies in specific, create a new crypto token and get funded for their activity. It began with a very basic problem, which was that blockchain companies had a really difficult time explaining to the traditional venture capitals or the various angels what they're doing and why it's important. And so, as it turns out, they just simply use the actual technology they're building on to fund themselves as well. And so, at the beginning, it wasn't even called an ICO, but terminology. But it's essentially a mechanism to which companies issue tokens and get funded. So it's essentially a smart contract where you send Ether, for example, and receive the token which was issued by the company.
Yeah, well, one of the other main terms that people use is a token crowd sale. Okay,
Exactly.
Just for people out there that are hearing these terms and don't know what what's it referring to. So we got you covered. You listen to this podcast, and we should know all about it. Okay, so basically an ICO, when we look at it, it's similar to an IPO or a crowdfunded venture capital investment, I would say. And traditionally, the problem with getting involved with such markets was access, right? If you're a normal a normal trader, a normal investors, you didn't really have an opportunity to get involved in VCs or and especially IPOs to get it on the opening price. That's not really available for everybody. So what's the solution that you so from a trader's perspective or an investor perspective, what do ICOs offer?
So I think it's the same kind of process a lot of the industries like content creation went through with the internet. It's essentially the democratization and decentralization of something that used to be held and controlled by very few people or entities, and now it's been released to everyone. And so you'll see the same thing with ICOs, because if you compare it, and again, there's some similarity to IPOs. Then IPOs are very closed. They're controlled by several banks. They get to decide who can IPO, when they can IPO, when the actual asset they're issuing can be traded, and all of those things, which obviously creates a situation where a very select few are able to participate on the same terms. Here, an ICO, if you compare it to an IPO, then you can invest with the best of them, right? Because you can invest on the same terms with the best investors in the world at the same time, and so the playing field really gets leveled to everyone. Everyone can participate, and so obviously, if you look at the effect, content creation, video, all of those kind of industries went through with the internet. Hopefully we'll have the same thing with the financial industry, which means we'll end up with a much more inclusive system or much more inclusive industry, and a much better one after at the other end of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm. And do you want to share some statistics, meaning figures about the investment? Because
yeah, I mean, it's keeping the whole industry is evolving very, very fast and very rapidly. And so in 2016, we saw about between $200 and $300 million raised in ICOs, and until now, so between Q1 and Q2 of 2017, we're already seeing about $500 million, I think, already. So it's growing very fast. Keep in mind, it also creates a new class of companies, because those blockchain companies who raised through ICOs are behaving very differently than normal companies. They have a different governance system. They have a different, their shareholders or investors are very different, and so it's not only changing the investment mechanism, but it's also changing the fundamentals of the company who gets invested through an ICO. And so there's a lot of things changing and evolving, and we keep learning. Obviously now it's basic level, because it's something we're only doing about a year or 2 years in this form, and so it keeps evolving very fast. You already have startups building governance systems and platforms for blockchain companies, and so I think it's evolving very, very fast. 2017 will be probably the biggest year. It's already the biggest year, and hopefully 2018 will be even bigger.
Yeah, just to put things in perspective, yesterday was the Banker ICO or fundraiser, as they called it, and they got almost 400,000 ethers, which is worth 100, over 100 million. Yeah,
over $150 million.
Yeah, over $150 million. The rate is fluctuating, but between 140 and 160 million dollars. So that's and these are huge amounts. And by the way, this happens within 3 hours. Yeah, it was just planned for an hour, and they had to withdraw it because there was so much a giant backlog, because either it was a DDoS attack or just the sheer amount of investors that wanted to get in. So these are big numbers. This is big money. This is even starting to make VCs look like the small business, right? It's
Actually, VCs are the majority of blockchain companies' investments are not coming from VCs anymore. They're coming from ICOs, and
yeah.
so in that respect, the traditional VCs are losing their ground and losing their and losing the fight against ICOs.
Yeah. Well, maybe, I mean, not maybe, sooner or later they'll have to, they have to join in the model, try to find their niche in the market.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, explain to us how CoinDash, fits into this picture. Where do you come in?
I mean, if we're starting from the assumption that this is by far the biggest use case for blockchain technology, then we also need to understand what are the challenges. And so, as it turns out, there aren't any investment tools or investment platforms for people coming into the ecosystem without experience to use and be helped by. Most of the investors I know and in the industry itself are managing their portfolios on Excel sheets, deciding what to invest in by, just talking with friends. So it's not very scalable, it's not very efficient. And if we want to scale it up and get to, mass adoption, we need to have those tools because the market is very complex and it's only getting more complex. So ICOs are essentially an investment vehicle, right? It's an investment instrument, but we don't fully understand it yet, and it's very new. But we're already seeing a second wave of investment instruments coming into the market because everything is decentralized and democratized. So it's essentially code, right? And so programmers developing investment instruments, which make it even more complex and more sophisticated. You have CFDs built on smart contracts. You have decentralized hedge funds. So all of those things are coming into the market, which makes it even more difficult for beginners to start and understand what to invest in. And so one of the biggest challenges along the kind of if you can trace the onboarding process of a beginner, of someone who wants to enter the market. So obviously you have challenges in buying your first Bitcoin, or even deciding what to buy, which asset, because you can buy Bitcoin, you can buy Ethereum, you can buy Ripple. So, but the biggest one is deciding what to buy and when. That decision making can actually make people not buy and not participate just because of the difficulty. And so, if we started by saying this is one of the biggest opportunities, then it also becomes one of the biggest challenges, because if you cannot provide the necessary tools and platforms for those people to onboard, and then you're simply losing hundreds of thousands of new users every year, and this is what we're seeing now. Incredible industry, but industry which cannot onboard all of the people who wants to participate. And so this is essentially why we created CoinDash. CoinDash starts by facilitating the baseline, a portfolio management software, somewhere you can see your performance as an investor, understand what assets you're holding, how you benchmark against the market. Those are the basic tools every investor outside the blockchain space has, but inside the blockchain space, we simply do not have them. And so everyone coming from outside will simply hit a wall because is not used to not having tools to do that. And so we start by providing those tools. Those are also a way for us to gather data on the market, which we can use to build what we call social trading, which is essentially the ability to follow someone and invest like him automatically. And so this removes a lot of the friction new users experience, because this can be essentially their ticket into the market. Start following someone who has a lot of experience and is a good trader, and then you can start learning about the market and become more sophisticated as you go along. So it removes a lot of the friction. We believe it's a necessary thing in order to scale up the use of crypto assets and the investment in crypto assets. And so this is essentially CoinDash. We are all in the company. We're all blockchain veterans. Everyone here is at least 4 years in the blockchain industry. We're all traders. Every one of us participates in ICOs and trades his own portfolio. And so we understand very well what are the pain points, especially for newcomers. And so we hope to kind of bridge that gap and enables us to bring more people to the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for Finance Magnates, readers, they'll recognize the model as, I would say, the eToro investment network model.
Yeah.
But in a more decentralized fashion, because explain please what you told me yesterday, that it's all done through through smart contracts, so you don't CoinDash doesn't manage anybody's funds,
Yeah.
right?
So first of all, we partnered with eToro because there's a lot of interest from both sides, from CoinDash and eToro, and we can learn a lot from each other. So in that respect, we are using the old school knowledge and expertise. But yeah, I mean, social trading for us is very different. What it means, something very different from what it means for eToro or other social trading companies in the traditional markets. We do not see social trading as a niche or the end goal of what we're doing. We see it as a tool to onboard more people, just because it removes a lot of the friction. And also the business model around copying others is completely different in CoinDash, because in the blockchain space you do not need a broker. You don't need to buy your assets through a broker. You can simply go and buy them directly, and so the whole business model is completely different. The first use case we will do and already developing is what we call copy ICO, which is essentially the ability to follow someone and invest in ICOs real time when that person invests in them as well. Everything is done through a smart contract, which means that in no point we hold any funds. In no point we hold any of the purchased assets. Everything is done peer-to-peer based on a smart contract, which means that the user always remains in control, and the user doesn't have to deposit funds or withdraw the funds, because they're for the entire duration are his funds. And so it makes the mechanism much more efficient, but also much more secure, because there's no single point of failure. We do not hold the funds, so hackers do not have one target they need to attack in order to rob whatever funds there are, because everything is again based on a smart contract. And so those are some of the differences between how blockchain does things and how the traditional markets do things, and which make it much more efficient, by the way. And so yeah, this is kind of the social trading aspect of what we're doing.
Yeah, just to explain to our audience that hacking is still a concern in the blockchain space, because it is so lucrative and you can see amazing returns. So it attracts cyber criminals as well. You can see just today we reported like somebody redirected, I would say, about $10 million in Ethereum from free wallet apps, and still trying to figure out what happened. So it's very
so all of those attacks are mostly on the client side. They are not on the infrastructure or the blockchain side. And so yeah, I mean, bad personal security practices obviously will endanger you, obviously, but as with any other software, I mean, if you don't have a good password for your Facebook account, someone will hack it, and a lot of the people, Facebook is their livelihood. So I mean, it's equivalent. If you do not hold your bank accounts or your bank portal passwords correctly, then someone can hack your bank portal and steal money from there as well. I mean, it's not completely different. And so good personal, security measures are good anyway. So, two-factor authentication, all of those things, keeping your passwords secured, having good passwords. So all of those things are still, intact. I mean, it's something everyone should have anyway.
Yeah, but in the blockchain ecosystem, I would say that your model sounds a lot safer than the main crypto exchanges that people.
Yeah, I mean, there's no single point of failure. I mean,
Exactly.
there's no one big target. Hackers know about and want to target. I mean, you simply have a bunch of users which already exists. It's not like it's not like we've invented. It's not like we created an additional complexity. I mean, it's just users using the same way they're using their Ethereum wallet or Bitcoin wallet, but now using it for a service. So if their personal security practices are good, then most probably they will be safe.
That's important. Another issue is, I wanted to so let's say I'm a starting trader and I need to know, who do I follow, right? So what type of history or statistic will be presented by people that want to be followed?
Yeah, so that's again one of the advantages in the blockchain is that as soon as you register and log into our service, we have your entire trading history, because again everything is written on the blockchain, and so it's not like you're starting from zero and then you need to prove yourself. If you're a good trader and you can and you connect all your accounts, then we know from day one how good of a trader you are, from back when you started. And so it means a longer trade history. It means that people without experience want to start following top traders have much more information about the people they want to follow. And so if you look at someone with 2 or 3 years worth of investment history, that's incredibly useful to understand if he's consistent and if he's a good trader, not the last month, but the last year or 2 years. And so you'll see benchmarking against the market. Obviously, how good is the investor against the market? If it can beat the market or not. The usual risk factors and all of those things you see when it comes to social trading. But the main difference is that everything, the infrastructure beneath it is blockchain. Then which means that you have a much longer and much more consistent history for each user.
Yeah, that's important. I think it's a important thing to remember. And so so do you want to tell us a bit more about your team, about your because I understood you also have an office in Shanghai and
yeah. So my partner is one of my oldest and closest friends. He's been in the past 10 years. He's been living in China. He's worked there, studied there. He actually opened the Shanghai office for eToro. That's what he's been doing for the past 2 years before joining CoinDash. And so yeah, I mean, we understood right away that China is a big market, especially for us, because we have someone on the ground who can actually speaks Chinese better than I speak English. He can connect to the locals and really make an impact. And so from the get-go, we understood that we want to have an office in the West, which is the Israeli office, and in China. And as it turns out, it works brilliantly because we can actually reach those two markets.
Yeah, that's important. China is a big player in the
it's a huge player.
Economy.
Yeah.
So are you planning? I mean, obviously everybody's planning, but do you want to talk about having your own ICO for CoinDash itself?
So yeah, I mean, CoinDash will have an ICO in mid-July. We'll raise enough money to finance our activities. And also keep in mind, ICOs is one of the best ways to bootstrap a community around your project, and especially true for CoinDash because our end users are also our investors, and so they have the biggest incentive to help you out. So from beta testing or even throwing ideas in the air. So it's an incredible way to bring more people and create a community around your project, which is always a necessary thing for startups, and it's a thing that a lot of the startups are finding very difficult. But ICOs are a good vessel for that as well. And so for us, it serves two purposes. And so yeah, we'll have it in mid-July. It will be issued on the Ethereum blockchain. Yeah.
I see. And you talked about your value proposition for the new traders. Basically, your you're helping them overcome the overload of information in order to decide, or not having to decide by themselves which ICO to join. But for the experienced traders, what will they gain by being followed? I'm guessing some.
Yeah, so there's essentially two main incentives. The first one is obviously a financial incentive, because those who are getting followed are receiving fees because they obviously share their experience and expertise, and so they are receiving fees from the people who follow them in return for that. And this is what and keep in mind again, in the crypto market, because the profits are so high, people are willing to pay a lot of fees in order to do that. And by the way, it's not people who are following others. It's not because they're inexperienced or new. They can be even people who have been in the space for a long time, but simply do not have the time to start reading about all the ICOs and deciding what to invest in. And so it's a very good tool for them as well. And this is the first incentive. The second incentive obviously is a social incentive, which is this incentive which drives the whole social network globally. People want to have more traction. People want to have more influence in their community. And so this is a great tool for them to gain that traction and influence. And keep in mind that social trading anyway is a very social thing, because people like to brag about their successes and everything. It's a very social intensive thing anyway, and it's especially true in the blockchain space because it's still very intimate, and it's a very small marketplace. And so the social kind of aspect of investments in the crypto space are very, very strong. And so I think those two incentives are very strong and make people want to share their themselves and being followed.
Yeah. So when the system will be up and running, will we see you as a copier or as a leader?
I think both. I mean, any trader who thinks it has nothing left to learn is bound to lose his money. I think what you'll end up with is good traders, mediocre traders, and even beginners are being followed and following others. And so it's a kind of an interconnected web of everyone is very connected to everyone else. Obviously, with time you'll have the prominent investors coming up and popping and making themselves more visible. But I think you'll see that a lot of the people are being followed and also following others.
Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a sort of network where people might.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm trying to imagine how it will be. There's probably going to be people that are specializing in let's say Chinese-based ICOs. Exactly. There's going to be people, very interesting. I see we've been talking for 25 minutes. Do you have any other topics that you think our audience needs to know about?
I think people already know the blockchain space. It's great to introduce them to CoinDash, and hopefully we'll see them as users in the future. And everyone who is interested in the blockchain space but haven't made the first step yet, I think be open to everything. There's a lot of issues still with the technology, with the companies, with everything, with the ICO models, everything, and because we're at the beginning. We're at the very beginning of something that can truly change a lot of things, a lot of industries in the world. And so I think the best way you can start learning is participating. And so people don't have to invest a lot of money. It can be $100, it could be $1, it could be $1,000. But that step towards buying your first crypto assets, checking out wallets, understanding how the things works, is participating. And I think that's very, very important. So if any of our listeners will think to themselves, should I buy, should I wait, get $50, buy your first fraction of a Bitcoin, of an Ethereum, wherever it might be, and start just understanding better the technology and how it works. I think that's my kind of.
Yeah. Do you want to shortly explain just because I'm getting a lot of questions right now from from everywhere, because people are saying, so how do I get into these ICOs? Because people, either they're stock trader, FX traders, people from the outside space. Just explain them, the basic. How do you
So
get involved with an ICO right now?
yeah. So most of the ICOs are happening on the Ethereum blockchain. And so in order to participate in the ICOs, what you'll have to do is buy Ether. That's your first step. Once you have some Ether, then participating in an ICO is actually pretty simple. Most of the ICOs, you'll go to the website, you'll have instructions how to participate in everything. But in general, it's essentially sending from Ethereum from your wallet into the address of the ICO itself. And it's pretty much it. I mean, it's just transferring some Ether from your account to the ICO smart contract, and that ICO smart contract will issue you the tokens automatically.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think we learned a lot, Alon. I want to thank you for for taking the time today.
Thank you very much.
And I wish you a lot of success in your ICO. I think it can help a lot of people.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you, Alon, and thank you for everybody that's been watching or listening. You can follow me at Avi Mizrahi on Twitter. And Alon, where can they learn more about CoinDash?
So get into our website. It's coindash.io. And from there you have all of our social network, all of our social media and everything.
Thank you, and of course keep following Finance Magnates, because we'll be reporting, any new development with the CoinDash ICOs and all the other major ICOs. So thank you for watching. Please leave a positive comment and subscribe. Goodbye.
Thank you, Avi. Bye bye.
Bye bye.